Hey, what's up, everybody? For your fix of fitness, health, life, and laughs, you know where it's at. That's right, it's at the Poecast with your host, yours truly, Adam Pullman.
Welcome to the Poecast. It's your host, Adam Pullman, fitness and nutrition coach, here to answer all of your questions. So this show is listener driven. Questions are sent in by listeners just like you about health, fitness, nutrition, muscle building, fat loss, whatever it might be. And I answer them in detail here on the show. So if you have a question that you want to send in, you can do that on Instagram. My handle is Adam_PullmanFit. You can find me there. And then on my story on Sundays, you'll see a question box that says ask me a question. So that is your green light to submit as many health and fitness questions and nutrition questions as you would like. I'll answer all of them there in the story, and then I'll take a few of those questions and answer them in detail and in more depth here on the show like I am today. The question that we'll be discussing today is about lower back pain when you're doing ab exercises. So why might that be happening, and what can you do to make sure you're doing your ab movements properly? Because everybody F's them up, to be honest with you. So we're going to be talking about that today. But before we do, I want to remind you of the free resources that we have for you at pullmanfitness.com/free. We have free guides on fat loss, muscle building. We have free articles for you. So if you want to learn more about health, fitness, and nutrition, you can find free information there. Like I said, that's pullmanfitness.com/free. And then if you enjoy what I do, you like the podcast, and you want to support me in that way so I can continue doing what I do, I would encourage you to check out our Eat More, Get Leaner ebook. This ebook, it's $7. It's nothing. And it's going to walk you through how to build a faster metabolism for easier fat loss in the long run. So I would encourage you to do that. If you feel like that's not an option for you, leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That could be a great help and support for the show. That way I can continue making valuable information that hopefully helps you out in your life. And if you want to do both of those things, more power to you. Greatly appreciate it. All right, today's question comes from the IG story, and the question is, any advice on lower back pain in relation to sit-ups? I have issues with my lower back. So obviously, I'm a personal trainer. Okay, I'm not an orthopedic. I'm not any sort of chiropractor. I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you what's wrong with your back. I can't diagnose anything, obviously. If I saw your movement patterns, I might be able to say, oh yeah, this might be hurting because you're doing this or whatnot. But I can speak into this a little bit, even if I don't know you specifically and what exactly you have going on, because this isn't something that is very uncommon. There are quite a few people that experience low back pain when they're doing ab exercises. And that could be coming from a few different things. The most common one is that people don't know how to do ab exercises properly. They think they do, but they don't. The other one is that their form is off. And the third one is that they have some sort of pre-existing thing that, despite no matter how good their form is or whatnot, their lower back still hurts. And that would be something that you should definitely go see a specialist about, rather than having me try to talk about it on the podcast here. So let's first, let's talk about both at the same time, because the form and knowing how to command your muscles and your abs kind of go into the same answer here. So a lot of people, when they do ab exercises, they don't understand the function of the abs in the first place. So let's try to figure that out. The abs are basically designed to bring your ribs closer to your pelvis and your pelvis closer to your ribs. So when you flex your abs, it's going to decrease that space between your pelvis and your ribs just a little bit. That's what your abs are designed to do. That's the function of them. Okay, that's a part of the function of them. They're going to bring ribs closer to the pelvis, pelvis closer to the ribs. And when you focus on that, that can actually cause some rounding in the back. And that's completely fine, normal, and okay. And actually probably should happen if you're commanding your abs and flexing them properly. But a lot of people keep a straight back, and most of the time actually an arched back. So they have the Instagram model back. They're sticking their ass out, sticking their chest forward, and that's how their back is positioned when they sit up and sit down, and they don't change. They're not actually moving their spine or their vertebrae. It's just saying stiff, and then boom, goes up, and then stiff, and then so it stays stiff the whole entire time, and that's not beneficial. So we want that back and those vertebrae to be actually moving, and that lumbar spine to be moving, as well as the thoracic spine. You want your whole spine to be moving, okay? So rather than keeping a straight back or an arch back, what you want to focus on is slowly rounding your back. So let's pretend we're going through a sit-up, okay? And like I said, this is a podcast. This isn't a video demonstration, but I feel after so many years of doing this, I can properly explain this to you just with my voice. But I don't want to get too arrogant. We'll see what happens. So you could even do this when you're at home, laying down on the floor. If you're driving right now, just get home, lay down on the floor later, and we can walk through this together. But what you're going to do is you're going to lay down on the ground flat. Okay, we're going to go through this sit-up. Now, you might notice that there is an arch in your lower back or a gap between the floor and your back when you're just relaxed, not thinking about anything. If not, that's okay. If so, that's okay. Regardless, what you need to do is focus on first eliminating that arch if there is one. Okay, if there isn't one, you still need to do this cue. So the first thing that you're going to do before sitting up is tucking your tailbone in. Or I guess if you're laying down, tucking your tailbone up and in. So curling it up and in towards your face, basically. So you're going to tuck that tailbone in, flatten that back against the ground. As you do that, you should already feel your abs engaged, because what you're doing is you're forcing a little bit more of a posterior pelvic tilt, and you're bringing the pelvis a little bit closer to your abs. So those abs are contracting, and that's why that's happening. Okay. Now, if you can't do this, that goes to show you either you have poor motor control skills or poor proprioception or body awareness, and you just need to learn how to flex those muscles over time, or you're completely weak. Could be both of those things, okay? And it's not uncommon either, okay? But you're going to flatten that back against the ground, push your lower back into the ground as hard as you possibly can. As you keep that brace with your abs, you're going to slowly curl your back off the ground, one vertebrae at a time, okay? The vertebrae in your neck, then thoracic. So each one slowly comes off the ground as you focus on contracting your abs in order to bring your ribs closer to your pelvis and pelvis closer to your ribs. Now you'll find that once you get to about a crunch position, there's really no more space that can be taken up by bringing your ribs closer to your pelvis. Like, your abs are fully contracted, and that's it. Like, they're not going to contract anymore. And even if they did, there's no space left for the ribs to move or the pelvis to move up. So you're in that crunch position, and I think that in and of itself goes to show you that there's really no point in going all the way up. Okay, you can if you want, but where people make the mistake is they focus on going all the way up, and they keep their back straight as they do so, and they use their hip flexors, because your hip flexors are responsible for that hinge at the hips when you're in this position, when you're bringing your chest closer to your knees. So that's what a lot of people do, is they try to bring their chest closer to their knees rather than their ribs closer to their pelvis. So whether you do a crunch or a sit-up, I don't give a shit, okay? You can do either. That was so harsh. Sorry. You can do either one of those, okay? But going down is going to be extremely important as well, because people go down super fast. But instead, you want to go slow. You want to go slow on the way up, go slow on the way down. And as you go down, you want to first focus on allowing that last vertebrae in your spine closest to your tailbone to hit the ground first. And then you let the next one hit. And then you let the next one hit. And then you let the next one hit. So basically, you're slowly uncurling your spine onto the floor. And you're going super slow as you do that. That should really help you contract your abs. And the similar motion and flexion and contraction is involved with almost any other ab exercise. You know, a very common one is like a decline sit-up. People think that a complete rep means getting all the way from the bottom of the bench to the top of the bench with their chest getting close to their legs, where their legs are strapped into those holders. But in doing so, they're keeping their back straight, and they're simply just using their hip flexors. Their abs are bracing because they have to. If you didn't have your abs, you would just fold backwards. You would just fold backwards and break in half your spine. So your abs are flexing a little bit in order just to keep your core braced, but they're not fully contracting to get the most out of the movement. But the same thing would apply in a decline sit-up and a hanging leg raise. You're going to tuck that tailbone in, slowly focus on curling and rounding that back, starting with the lower back or upper back, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing a hanging leg raise, your lower back, you're going to slowly curl, tuck that tailbone in, and slowly curl that spine as you focus on bringing your pelvis closer to your ribs, and then uncurl that pelvis as you go back down. Same thing applies for any exercise. So a lot of people mess this up by only using their hip flexors and going too fast. So I hope this helps in some way. If it does, and you got something out of it, and you know someone else that would get something out of it, spread the love. Share it with your friends and family. Let them know that this show is where they can go to get a lot of their health, fitness, and nutrition questions answered.
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe it is over already. Hey, thank you guys so much for listening to the Poecast. Hey, listen in. If you have a health and fitness goal that you are trying to reach, I don't know what else to say other than to say it must be a match made in heaven. If you didn't know already, Pullman Fitness exists to transform the body, mind, and spirit through personal coaching and sustainable fitness plans for any stage of life. So, if you want to reach your goals, build sustainability, and enjoy life all at the same time, you guys got to check out Premier Coaching at Pullman Fitness. From custom tailored programming to 24/7 access to your personal coach, you'll have everything that you need to succeed. You guys can find out a lot more about Premier Coaching as well as our membership program at pullmanfitness.com. Hey, if you enjoyed the show, share the love by leaving a 5-star review and introducing the Poecast to your friends and family. As always, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, this is the Poecast.